Hello guys, it's Mr. Wolfie, and I know you're probably reeling after the events of The Walking Dead season premiere, so we're not even going to talk about that. We're not even going to talk about that. So, Halloween's coming up. It's only like a few days away, man. It's like 7 days from when I'm making this video. So I think it is imperative that you have a plan. What are you going to do for Halloween? I am probably going to take my niece trick-or-treating, and I'm probably going to dress up as Dudley from Street Fighter. I have most of the outfit ready. It's not like cosplay level, but it's fun, Halloween trick-or-treat. Hey, what's up, everybody? Level. And also, I can't shave my beard, so I can't do like the cool stash and everything, because I'm not shaving until after the election. So it's just like a thing that I told everyone to do. So I can still make it fun. And my ideas for Halloween usually involve either a movie marathon, a video game marathon with like friends and family. Like I can remember, after the trick or treat stage, when me and my sisters were too old to trick or treat, we would kind of play like Silent Hill all night or Resident Evil all night or something like that. And I'd even show the Silent Hill games to my parents because they like the stories. It's got like a cinematic movie feel to it, and they find it entertaining. And somebody, you got to do something on Halloween, so why not do that? So I have a pretty sweet library of movies and a pretty sweet library of video games. You can't see those; they're in the other room here. So let's say you wanted to watch a DVD. Well, I have a few DVD ideas that would thoroughly entertain anyone for several hours. And some of these aren't as... Well, a couple of these are. Some of these aren't... Some of the stuff I talk about is going to be like mainstream. Everyone's going to tell you to do this because it's just good. But there's a few things on here that I think most people don't know about that maybe it'll entreat you to check out and enjoy for yourself the way I enjoy it. The first thing, though, is pretty standard. If you want to see some good monster movies that are... giant monster movies in general, I have a DVD collection that includes 20 Million Miles to Earth, The Giant Claw, It Came from Beneath the Sea, and Mothra. Now, Mothra, you can't not love Mothra. Mothra is friggin' sweet. It's a classic. It's like one of the milestones of the giant monster movie genre. But I would say that on this collection, the Giant Claw, I'm not a huge fan of the Giant Claw. It's kind of goofy to me. That it just looks so ridiculous. It Came from Beneath the Sea is pretty good. But 20 Million Miles to Earth is fantastic. It's one of the Ray Harryhausen movies. If you see that, you can't really tell much. But it's like a thing comes from... Did they go to Mars or the moon? Man, I haven't even seen it in several years, so I can't even remember. But anyway... They come back to Earth with a creature, and the creature being exposed to our atmosphere and consuming minerals that is kind of common on our planet. It's like their source of food on their planet, and it's just stuff that's just everywhere here. It makes him larger and stronger and just this huge thing out of nowhere. As a reaction to just coming to Earth. And so it becomes difficult to deal with after a while, and they try to be like, oh look, we can make money showing this thing off, but no, that never works out, does it? It's just, you can't show off giant monsters. I mean, look at the Jurassic Parks. It just never works out. You can't have attractions that are alive that can go on a rampage of the level that is like a weapon of mass destruction. So highly recommend you check it out. Ray Harryhausen. If you know the stop motion, like Jason and the Argonauts and stuff like that, that technology, that special effects department, that's him. He's he molds the things and then moves them a little bit. It's phenomenal, and I've always been a huge fan of any of the movies that feature that kind of thing. The Sinbad movies and that sort of thing. In terms of just dialing it back and having... it's not scary, it's just have fun and enjoy some sci-fi horror type movie action. The Lost Skeleton of Cadavra. Now, this has a pretty good cult following, so I know most, or at least a lot of the people that see this are gonna know it, but it's a recent movie, it came out in 2004, it says, that is basically a parody of all those old sci-fi movies that were just so ridiculous. Like the cheap B movies that had the cheesiest plots and the worst acting and all that. The actors on here are fantastic because they're good actors that are specifically acting like bad actors act. And and the dialogue is great. It's like it's just hilarious. It's just this mixture of all these different horror movie genres, you know, kind of like it's just a mess, but on purpose. And it's a genius. It's black and white. It's a fun movie to watch. You should definitely check it out. And then in terms of things that you expect people to recommend, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, is pretty much my favorite slasher type movie. I could do a whole video on just that, and I might do that some other time, but I won't dwell on that. I fully recommend that one if you're going to watch a horror movie tonight. In the terms of VHSs, I've got some good stuff here. If you're going to watch a giant monster movie, going back to that sort of genre, you really can't beat the original Godzilla or Gojira King of the Monsters. I recommend watching the original Japanese version, because the American version, like, they added this subplot that was unnecessary just to include an American character to make the movie, you know, palatable to American citizens. Yeah, it is what it is. Both movies are very watchable. I think the Japanese version is better. And I don't say that for a lot of things, like, you know, I'm not like a Japanophile where I always say that, oh, the American translation is crap, you should watch the original Japanese. No, in this case, that's definite. That's that and Godzilla Raids Again. The Japanese versions are just way better overall. Just don't even watch the American versions, because the American version of Godzilla Raids Again is stupid. The only reason to watch it is to make fun of it. The other version is actually really good. Like, really, it's serious and consistently a solid movie. And in terms of non-Godzilla movies, but still giant monsters, Rodan. Rodan is just a fantastic standalone movie. You know, he made some appearances in Godzilla movies after that, but he, as on equal footing of Mothra, earned his solo movie. As far as it was a very good movie. I can't recommend it enough. And then taking it back down a notch, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein is my favorite of the Universal monster Abbott and Costello crossover movies, because it has Frankenstein, the Wolfman, and Dracula. And Abbott and Costello, of course, are absolutely insanely hilarious the whole time. It actually features Bela Lugosi and Lon Chaney in the movie. So Dracula is the Dracula, and the Wolfman is the Wolfman. So that's a huge upper. Then there's... This is one thing that most people know about, and I'm not going to harp on it too much because a lot of reviewers, including... the Nostalgia Critic I know talked about this, but It's Grinch Night is the Halloween alternative to the Grinch Who Stole Christmas. It came out a couple years later, and really the main reason to watch it is for a few scenes that just get super trippy and psychedelic, and it's got some interesting music, but I don't love the music. It's got some really funny one-liners that you may or may not have heard about. They've become memes. So it's one to definitely check out if you haven't seen it before. And then to kind of twist the things up a little bit, Halloween 3 Season of the Witch is a very good Halloween movie to watch. Mostly because it's just, that's the whole point of it. Like the other John Carpenter Halloween movies happen on Halloween and they have Halloween elements in it. But the movies themselves aren't about Halloween, they're about a killer that happens to have this connection to killing people on Halloween. This movie is actually about the holiday itself, and it delves into the backstory of why we celebrate Halloween and things like that. And it has... A lot of people don't like this because it's not a Michael Myers Halloween movie, but the thing is, if you look at it as a standalone, it is a very good John Carpenter movie. It's as good as most of the other stuff he ever did. It's not The Thing, and it's not Escape from New York, and it's not Big Trouble in Little China, but it's a very good John Carpenter movie, and it's a very good movie to watch on Halloween. If you haven't seen it, I fully recommend you watch it at least once and form your own opinions. I'm not going to tell you what to think about it, but yeah, I tend to watch that. I tend to watch that on Halloween fairly often. So then we'll move on to some video games here. I got some good stuff. Let's look at NES, Super Nintendo, and Sega. If you have any of these games, I fully recommend, or if you don't even and just want to check them out, I fully recommend checking them out on Halloween. Shadowgate and also Maniac Mansion are both point and click. I would classify them as survival horror in that they're point and click, but you're trying to survive horrible experiences the whole time. Shadowgate is more, if you've seen me play Deja Vu, or if you've ever seen Deja Vu or heard of it, it's made by the same people. It's a very similar game. Maniac Mansion is freaking awesome. You're following a bunch of kids into a mansion with a bunch of monsters and aliens and stuff, and you got to save people, and you got to save your friends. It's a rad experience. I fully recommend it. And then of course, how can you not? I mean, this probably as much or more so than Castlevania, but we're going to move on to that in a minute. Ghouls and Ghosts, or Ghosts and Goblins in this case. It's Super Ghouls and Ghosts is what I'm about to show you. Actually, yeah, Ghouls and Ghosts is in there. Never mind. I was going to show you Super Ghouls and Ghosts, Ghosts and Goblins. There's the Ghouls and Ghosts on the Sega. There's, you know, any of those games from that set, including, and actually I set this aside because it's its own game, and you all know my opinions on Demon's Crest. It's like my favorite game ever. Just anything from that classification is just steeped in, you know, classic monster movie type feel. It's sort of like Castlevania in that there's just monsters everywhere, and you're killing them, and it's spooky. It's like Monster Party. It's just fun. It's a good game to play on Halloween. The first Castlevania is fantastic, but I also have a super soft spot for Castlevania Bloodlines. This is actually the original box, by the way, for you video game collectors. This is a sweet collector's item. It's for the Sega. It's possibly my favorite Castlevania game. I love it so much. And then we'll move on to the N64, and the only game I have on the N64 that I thought was good potentially for Halloween, because there wasn't a lot of scary games on the N64 that I would classify as actually scary or actually Halloweeny, but Halloweeny, I said weenie. But Resident Evil 2. I have the Resident Evil 2 version on the N64 just because when I was a kid, I didn't have a PlayStation. I had an N64. So we were a Nintendo family. Some people are Twizzlers families. Some people are dog families. We were a Nintendo family. Okay, so there's that. Other than some sound issues, I would say that this is on par. This is the same. This is just as good. It's also helpful because you don't have to have 2 discs, so that's pretty rad, and it saves on the memory card. So it's got the whole game on here rather than having to switch discs back and forth in the PlayStation version. So that's pretty sweet to me, but it's just whatever you think there. Fully recommend. I mean, Resident Evil 2, it's not as hard as the other games, but for some reason I connect with it more than the other games. Maybe it's just the nostalgia factor. It's pretty much, I think it was the first Resident Evil game I played personally, so I connected with it. Let's check out some. Let's see. We'll move to newer games soon, but let's check out some PlayStation 1 and PC games. And as far as PC games go, ones that I have and ones that I love, you can't beat the first Diablo. I like it more than the second Diablo just because it's got to be nostalgia. I played the ever-loving flip out of this game. I played it. I lived on it for like a couple of years, I think. It had a fantastic online experience. It was just fun. It was just fun, super fun. It got me through like my first year of college, pretty much, just sitting around, playing Battle.net, hanging out with people, helping them beat Diablo, that kind of thing. In terms of the PlayStation, I do have a PlayStation now, and I actually got one not long, just a year or two after I got the N64. I broke down and bought it myself with some money I'd earned in my first job, and you can't beat the first Silent Hill. You can't. It is Silent Hill is the quintessential scary game series to me. It's fallen from grace in many ways, but the ones that existed before they did so are so good that they're on a tier all their own. I mean, you know Silent Hill. There's plenty of other people to talk about it. I don't need to sing its praises too much. It's just that good. And if you're looking for something more, it's not necessarily scary, but it's like horror themed. Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver is pretty phenomenal. The Legacy of Kain series is just great. It's one of the best video game stories ever told, except for Blood Omen 2. We won't talk about that. But it's just that good. Amy Hennig is a phenomenal writer. She went on to do the Uncharted games and things like that. So, if you know those games, you know how good the writing is. So, let's see, PlayStation 2. We'll move on to that. I got a couple games here in terms of PlayStation 2 Resident Evil games. The ones that I've played, the ones that I like. I really Code Veronica X is super top tier to me. It's got a great story. It's intense. It's actually got some genuinely scary and creepy subject matter for a Resident Evil game. Resident Evil 4 is an easy one to compare it to in terms of which one do you like better. I don't know. Honestly don't. I really don't. So I recommend that one if you haven't played it. Always play Resident Evil 4. I can't recommend that one enough, but play Code Veronica X if you haven't played it. Clock Tower 3 is got some corny, cheesy, goofy stuff, but it's one of the genuinely scariest gaming experiences I can ever remember. Like, being chased around by the bad guys in that game is terrifying. Like, they just... You hear the music and you're just like... You freak out for a minute. And you just... Like, your adrenaline goes 100% up like the character in the game, and it's just intense. It's a fun, good PlayStation 2 game to play when you want to, like, spook yourself. And then in terms of shooters that are kind of dark and horror themed, Area 51 for the PS2 is a very good first-person shooter, and it's a very good... it's got some scary elements. I mean, it never scared me, per se, but, it's got the dark atmosphere, and it's got monsters, and it's got horror-themed violence and stuff, so, I mean, if that's your thing, then that's a good game for a Halloween experience, especially for people that have never seen or played it. Okay, so we'll move on to Xbox 360, and then we'll wrap this up real quick. And I'll just kind of get these I'll get these out of the way all in one go. Dead Rising, Left 4 Dead, and Red Dead Redemption. But the thing about Red Dead Redemption, also all these have dead in it. I didn't even realize that until just now. The Red Dead Redemption, the zombie DLC, the Undead Nightmare, best DLC ever. Ever. I actually was glad I bought it because, a lot of DLC I end up regretting. But in this case, no words describe it. Being a cowboy fighting zombies is just the funnest thing I can think of in a video game ever. It was just super awesome. And Dead Rising, you can't beat everything about Dead Rising I love. I can't, that's one of my favorite games ever, especially on the Xbox 360. Then Left 4 Dead, I'm not a super huge fan of. It's a great multiplayer experience, though. If you have friends over and you want to play a good scary game, one of the Left 4 Dead games is great. I only own the first one because I didn't really care for the series that much. So the first one was the only one. I mean, to me, that was the max. It didn't really have anywhere to go from there. It just was. It was going to be as good as it was going to be. And although the second one is actually better, I didn't really feel like buying it. It's just to put it flat out. But you might, and they're great. First-person shooters, especially from a horror standpoint. And Undead Nightmare even has multiplayer, so that's great too. It's online multiplayer only. But anyway. And then these two games are fun to play on Halloween for their own reasons. Condemned Criminal Origins is one of the better Xbox 360 games in terms of survival horror, atmospheric elements. It's just good. It's you really feel like you're trying to solve these mysteries, and you really feel like the combat is gritty. It feels like you're trapped in a situation where people are trying to just rip you apart, and the only thing you can do is reach over and grab the first thing your hand touches, which happens to be a pipe or something, you know? It makes you think about what in your house could be a weapon if you were getting attacked by people. It's a good experience, and in the story, the story is interesting. The story in the second one took a downhill dive, but the story in the first one is very gripping, and I highly recommend checking it out. And then, of course, Deadly Premonition. A lot of people play this on Halloween on like streams and stuff just because it's fun and funny to play. It's basically Twin Peaks the game, but with a weird elements that are unique to the game. I don't know how to even describe it. It's almost like a parody. It's almost like, I mean, they knew exactly what they do. Everything in there was a conscious decision. It's just so weird. It's just such a weird game, but it's got some scary elements. I mean, you are solving a serial killer murder mystery, and you are fighting ghosts? I don't know what I don't know what they are. I never figured that out. It was super complicated. Zombies sort of things. But yeah, it's a fantastic Halloween experience. If you just want to, all this stuff I've been talking about, if you just want to hang out with your friends or family and do that in the house for Halloween rather than go out and try not to get eaten by clowns, then you should do that, because Halloween is fantastic and you should experience it with people and stuff. Anyway guys, peace out. Love you guys. This has been Mr. Wolfie.